You're tuned in to the MtG Cable cast, where they cover Magic, the Gathering finance. All right? You don't know about it? You're tuned in right now and get ready to learn some shit. Buckle your seatbelts and light a blunt and get ready for the MtG Cable cast. Starring Reptar and Thirsty, them onion head motherfuckers.
Alrighty, guys, welcome to the newest episode of the Cabalcast. And this week, we're actually giving coverage of an event that I was nearby when the first one happened, and very big proponent of what it's there to support. And you actually attended it.
Yes.
And that is the Hunter Burton Memorial. So with that, let's take it away.
So for those that don't know, the HBMO has been running for this is its 11th year. When Star City was doing coverage every weekend, you would see a lot more presence and advertisement for this event through their stream. That's how I learned about it, but I never had the opportunity to go. It's branded as being in Dallas, Texas, but it's actually in Hearst, which is not too far from DFW. It's in a beautiful hotel and convention center, so cool. At the end of the day, this is a charity event that is to support the 988 Suicide and Crisis Hotline. And before the Modern Maid on Saturday, the TO basically gave a very fantastic and very emotionally charged opening speech, basically reminding people that by several shows of hands that suicide and crisis impacts us all. And that is why we were there and what we were there to support. By the time the Modern Main started at about 9:30 a.m. on Saturday, the numbers were 1,500 plus players would go through the hall to play in all the scheduled events. There were over 300 events that were to be firing. And everyone doing work at this event was a volunteer. No one was paid. Every dollar paid out in prizes is donated. And at the time, they said it was over $40,000 for donated prizes. A store named Generation X donated $5,000 to keep a quarter of the main room available for casual play, though it was mainly Commander. The big thing this year was it was the first year with both panels and live podcasts happening on Prem. So Jerry Thompson was there and did an episode of the Jerry T podcast. And I took a photo of this and posted it on Twitter and in our Patreon. But there was a Pioneer Memorial event on Friday, and the winner of that received the belt that you see up on screen now or on our Twitter or Blue Sky feed. And the winner of the HBMO, well, not the winner, sorry. Nobody takes home the trophy that I'm displaying right now. The entire top 8 is ascribed on the side panel. And it's just difficult to see. But basically, they're just kind of running it out, I effectively believe, like the Stanley Cup. They just want to keep adding more and more rings to it. And my expectation for the event was that it would kind of feel more like an old-style PTQ where you just kind of gathered in a hotel ballroom and did your thing all weekend. And that was also based on what you and I saw in the marketing copy for the event ahead of time. And what I'm going to bring up now are 2 photos of the main room that we were in. This is taken from basically right inside the door, walking hard right past registration. We can see a lot of the vendors in the background that bifurcated the room, and everything on the other side was basically various commander pods in the free play area. And then in this current photo, this is the rest of the main event area with the main stage off to the right, and coverage was a little bit past the main stage done by Onzi D. So that went up on, I thought it was going to be in a Hunter Burton Memorial main page for this on Twitch, but apparently it was also on the main Magic page in the hours where Spotlight Utrecht wasn't happening. So there was a level of intrigue and mystique around this event that I didn't quite expect going in and while I was there, because I thought this was always kind of something smaller done for charity, but it seems to have been growing over time. And I was very much surprised at everything that went on and the breadth and depth of events that were here. There was also a silent auction on Prem, and put up a couple of photos of that as well that I had no idea ever happened. I don't know if this was the first year or the 11th year of the silent auction, but it was a more direct way to effectively donate to 988.
Yeah, I don't know if so I know the first year they didn't have it because 988 didn't exist yet. But I believe it did become a staple after that became public for everyone.
Yep.
So yeah, sorry, continue.
I was going to say, what else you got for me? Hit me.
So other question, and this is one that kind of like, even looking at the copy when we first looked at it, kind of intrigued me a lot. And it was just the vendors, because there's, as you said, like, yes, there's Magic there, but you can check the copy, and then you said before the podcast you even saw Fab happening there.
Yep.
How many vendors were there? And did they come like, I'm just bringing a specific game? Was there a little bit of everything? And, you know, if there were like well-known Magic vendors that were there, like Toa or anyone like that, were they there, and were they doing non-MTG?
Got it. Okay, so I'll do this with some images alongside. So the first vendor, when you entered the room, Card Cache, they had bulk boxes. Like, you would see 5 rows, and it was like $1 rares, $2 rares, $3 rares. They had sealed secret layers. They had standard, modern, commander, and CEDH staples in both foil and non-foil. And they had mid-reserve list cards like Duel's Cradle, Mox Diamond. And their banner was kind of par for the course that you would see anywhere else, except at the bottom of it, it said, "End good conversation," which I thought was amazing, because how many times have you and I talked about being at a booth, and part of that experience is working with people and engaging with them and opening them up. Not so they open up their purse strings to you.
No, just like making it a positive experience for them that they remember.
Even if they don't buy something there, that good conversation could convert them into a customer later, and that's just as important as them buying something in the moment that you need. I dealt with these guys before, and they're on TCG Player. Let me spend 10 extra cents because I like them. Next into the room, CM Games, that's Card Monster Games. I believe they might be out of Tennessee still. What you see in the photo are
Kentucky, I think.
Yeah, a little bit of sealed, and they also brought supplies. They were the only vendor there that had dragon shields and some other types of sleeves. They had basically like the good secret layer singles, alliteration, in both foil and not. They had a great spread of standard, modern, and commander cards in foil and not foil. And they also had high-end reserve list, power, etc., and confetti foils from some of the newest sets.
Okay.
And we're 2 vendors deep now, and we're starting to see a little bit of a trend here in that we're seeing standard, modern, and commander cards. And that's because outside of the Pioneer event, those were the primary drivers for fill and fire events that weren't sealed. So Friday was the large Pioneer event. There wasn't a lot of time to move those cards between opening of doors and round 1. So you fill your case with standard and modern cards, because modern was on Saturday, so it's opportunity to sell cards there. Standard was on Sunday, and I think there might have been some fill and fires as well. So people were, all booths, very attuned to that. And then there was a large CEDH event that started, I think, an hour before the main on Saturday morning. So having those cards was very important as well. And so that's kind of why we see this trend. Then, let me see. This one's hard to line up because of placement. But there was another vendor there named Area 51. And they had a half booth. Everybody had an island in the middle of the room. And Area 51 was on one half of the booth that the silent auction was on. And Area 51 had sealed collector boosters, like the full boxes, but they had things like Outlaws of Thunder Junction. They had a number of sealed Pokemon sets. They also had the Pokeballs, like when you see the display rack of the 2x3 that has like a Master Ball and an Ultra Ball and 3 regular Pokeballs. They had some of the full displays and some of the loose Pokeballs, still sealed though. They had sealed Lorcana, And this is something that I've never seen at a Magic event before, but the overlap is very large. They actually had a fair number of signed and graded professional wrestling cards. And what you're seeing here in the top of this image is a signed copy of WrestleMania for the original Nintendo, signed by Terry Hulk Hogan.
That's sick.
Yeah, so that was one of the cases, and here's the other one. And this is sealed wrestling cards. You can see it's basically Topps Chrome 2025 WE stuff, some select, and then a few other odds and ends that could contain like autograph cards. There's like something called Photogenic, another one called Flawless.
Flawless is like the really high end.
Yeah.
Yeah, like 5,000 a pack for football at least.
It's an entire sealed box. And so,
there's one pack a box.
So this was very unique, but again, that overlap isn't zero. It's very wide. And then they had, I didn't realize this at the time when I was taking some just generic photos of the room, they had a 3-row or a 4-row between display cases of more wrestling cards sorted by wrestler. Yeah. And there didn't really seem to be a whole lot of like rhyme or reason or like era cards, like 80s wrestlers versus like Attitude Era or etc. It was just like fan favorites.
Attitude Era was so good.
Yes, agreed. But there was just some fan favorite stuff in there, and then some high-end wrestling cards as well.
Yeah.
Then the last booth in the room past this was again a half booth split between the vendor we're looking at now, Crimson Lion. What you can't see here and was hard to get a photo of was in the middle of the front-facing tables. There was actually like this spin-to-win wheel. And I didn't get a really good idea of how you entered into it or what was on it because the booth was just flooded with people, and I don't like taking photos of people when they don't know about it. But the Crimson Lion table had sealed secret layers. They had CEDH staple foils, things like Thoracle and Confetti Foil, Risic Study, Smothering Tithe as well. And then they had, and this is kind of interesting, they had foil and non-foil low-end CEDH and EDH fetches, but it was things like Kiki Jiki and Beseech the Mirror. Right? So it spans this weird gamut of like, cool, people are casual enough to want to play Kiki Jiki and Commander, so we'll serve them, but also competitive enough that we need Beseech the Mirrors and like Khan's era fetch lands in both foil and not. So that was kind of cute and interesting. And I don't think I got a photo of the case. Oh, no, I did. Okay. The last vendor in the room on the other side of the booth from Crimson Lion is Laughing Dragon Games or the Laughing Dragon Experience. I don't really know. And you can see on the right-hand side, they have a few collector booster boxes. They have some sealed Commander products. But mainly across the table were binders, which you and I have talked about loving. They contained foreign cards, foil cards, both cards. They also contained promos. So I was looking for the Hadoken Lightning Bolt. I needed a second copy. So I asked them. They pointed me to a secret layer binder where they had like 4 other different secret layer lightning bolts, but not that one. And so I kind of got a good sense that they were basically just kind of stuffed to the gills for people who were looking for some playable cards in those binders, but regardless of format and competitive level. And then the cases that you see in the photos, they were really scratched, so it's difficult to get a photo of them, but we see there's a reserve list of all types in here. They have high-end modern cards, so they had a bunch of the expeditions. The reserve list cards that they had outside of the cases were also pretty high-end, and there seemed to be this like almost handshake kind of way, or like a wink and a smile that got access. So I was standing there and somebody had just traded in a bunch of stuff, and the deal had started as just kind of rumblings, but they were looking for a Chains of Mephistopheles and maybe like a city in a bottle or something. And there was just this little gray box in the back that had all the other high-end reserve list stuff that wasn't just Moxen, right?
Yeah.
And this was the only vendor here that I saw to have Flesh and Blood. And I think that was notable. And I don't remember seeing any vendor there that had Pokemon, despite there being Pokemon events there, and no Lorcana singles, as far as I can remember. So That was kind of the vendor experience. I don't know exactly the difference between why you would have or the price for a full island versus a half island.
Yeah.
And everything was set up pretty well. The room flowed really well. The vendors basically, like I said, bifurcated the room. It was easy to move through them, to go from one side to the other at any point in time. Everything was pretty well laid out. It seemed like everybody just covered the needs for the players in the room, unless you were Pokemon players.
Sure, yeah. And that's actually kind of surprising that there wasn't, like, again, Collecticon, stuff like that. Pokemon's everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a little surprising to see that there wasn't much there.
Yeah. And then the last thing in the room, just to cover quickly, was the silent auction / Hunter Burton Memorial merch table. And this is just a quick photo of the merch. And we can see the shirts for this year in maroon, black, navy. They have hoodies, they have bags, they have play mats. On the back side of this photo is Area 51 games. You can kind of see the cases moving around to the right. And when I took this photo... Oh, and you can see the spin to win wheel from Crimson Lion on the left. When I took this photo, the secret auction or silent auction stuff hadn't been placed, but by the time I'd come back on Saturday and Sunday, it had begun to be filled out. Okay. There were groupings of cards, I think 10, signed by artists. So there was one set that had a play set of Silence and 6 other cards. Whoever did that, whoever did Obstinate Baloth had a set. Whoever did Cyclonic Rift had a set. Then there was an oversized Pokemon card set that actually had a fair amount of money attached to it. There was a fantastic judge at the event. I think he might be the coordinator for the U.S. South. He has a playmat out in the field, lounging like the Brian Kibler playmat, with his cowboy hat on and an old school judge shirt, and that was fantastic. But the only thing I took a photo of, I posted this on social, is on Sunday somebody donated a Snoop Dogg album.
Oh, that's sick.
Yeah, signed by it's the album art, the vinyl, and signed by Snoop. And then you can also see in the top right hand corner artist prints for the this is not Dan Frazier. I don't know if he did the talismans, but is it talismans in the top right hand corner? I don't know if all 5 from the enemy set were there or if it was all 10 across both, but it was from that specific secret layer where they went back and they put them in like retro border. That was there as well. Then there were some other sports cards things, like there were a couple boxes of football cards and wrestling cards that were sealed. And that was kind of the secret auction. And everything had bids and everything was moving at a decent clip. Sorry, not secret, silent auction. I keep saying that, I'm incorrect. And so in that regard, like the vendor booths and the auctions just seemed really fun. They were self-sustaining. They were very interesting to see. Everything was auctioned off basically at the end of the event. And if you won, I assume they would just ship it out to you.
Yeah.
And
how do you want to pay? It'll be on its way, kind of thing, yeah.
And that was actually something I didn't know existed. I knew there would be vendors, and I thought this year we knew there would be a silent auction, but I had no idea if there was one in the past or not. But it was pretty cool to see.
It's something that I've always thought was really cool at Gen Con every year, is their auction that they do. And I mean, obviously it's not a silent auction, but I've always thought more events should do that. So I'm actually really glad not only that they're doing it, but it's going well.
Yeah.
For sure. So I have effectively 3 more questions for you, but 2 of them I'm going to go ahead and combine.
Okay.
Because it should be pretty easy. And that's basically like, of all the players there, who seemed most excited to be there, most happy with what they were doing, and what was the attendance like? And the thing I'm curious about with events specifically is, obviously there's not really large-scale events for these other games, except Pokemon, the way there is with Magic.
Yep.
Did it seem like people were happier with this format than the old Grand Prix format or Magic Fest, whatever? And what games did people want to play more?
So I think people were really happy overall with the idea of the event than necessarily the events themselves. There were a lot of issues with the main event because it was run through Spice Rack that plagued round turnover. And there was a half an hour plus delay in starting the event because of Spice Rack. And it seemed like every round there was an announcement because of that. So everybody was excited to be there because of the root cause. because of the charity, because crisis and suicide touches us all in various ways. So everybody was happy to be in the building, and the buzz for the main was fantastic until the logistics of Spice Rack started just kind of crapping all over it.
Yeah.
So that aside, it seemed like everybody was happy to be engaged with the main, and the event space was just kind of flowing all together. Side events were difficult to see fire on Saturday and Sunday because more people were engaged with the main than anything else. And there was so much to do and see on Saturday that I think pulled the interest in various side events away. Okay. So
I could see that.
There was supposed to be a vintage event, and I don't think that fired, which was perfectly fine. The Legacy event actually on Sunday started with as many players or more players than were in the main.
Well, big Legacy events tend to draw.
It's true, which is why I thought the vintage event would as well. Yeah, but if I just had to pick a group of players that were there that were looking forward most to their event and to continue playing throughout the day, it might have actually been the CEDH players. I don't know what the pricing was. I do know there were personalities that came out there. I heard murmurs as I was walking back and forth. They were in effectively the vestibule outside the main room, so they had their own area. And I think their event kind of took care of itself. So they were excited to be given the space to kind of exist in their own area. I do know that Pokemon Flesh and Blood and Star Wars happened, but they happened on the second floor of the event. And I only got a peek of them very, very rarely when I went out the main and turned to the right. Let me see if I have this photo. And you had to look up. And when you did, you saw this little area of players and the banners for Lorcana. Now, what event is there? I don't really know. If I kept turning around and I basically sat in the CEDH player area and looked up, there was more balcony above and outside the main event where it looked like there were more tables and players. And I don't know how they felt about their engagement overall with the event. But at the end of the day, when everything is said and done, I think it was the CEDH players that were there that had the most fun and the highest expectations for their event. There's also the taint of what is happening in the modern format that kind of soured people on the format, but not the event. So it's kind of a balancing act in that regard too. Again, everybody was happy to be there to support the cause in their own way. And the people that were there to play modern were there to just kind of exist in a format for the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And then the side event attendance, right? We kind of went over that. I heard it was difficult to get into. Registration was easily found, but going through the Spice Rack app, much like most other apps right now for TCGs, there's no ping. So what I was hearing was, and this is from multiple firsthand experiences, you would be watching your fill and fire fill like you're on Arena or Moto, and you would see the seats fill and you would get to 7. And then you would sit there and wait for the 8th player for like half an hour because there's no ping. They don't know to look at their phone. Then after an amount of time, they would be shifted to the next event of the same type and somebody else would fill in. But you never really got that announcement. You had to keep checking with registration to make sure something didn't happen, etc. So side events did happen, not as frequently as they probably should have. And so again, a lot of consternation is surrounding the Spice Rack app itself. I don't know if anything would have changed that much if it was done on Melee or a companion for the fill and fires, etc. But as far as I can tell, the root cause of a lot of that frustration, etc., came from the Spice Rack application itself.
Fair, yeah, and that's something I have not heard a single good thing about Spice Rack by event organizers. I don't know if you have. I have no idea how that's still being used. But
yeah,
hey,
This was my first experience with it. If basically I didn't have to download it so I could see my pairings, I wouldn't have downloaded the app itself. I went there with a local, and I believe as soon as we were both done with the main, we just deleted the app. Because there's no reason to have it. It doesn't even tell you, like... So Companion Leads tells you when your event started, your round turnovers, etc. You get identifiers about that. Spice Rack doesn't do that at all. You got to stare it down. It's just a little miserable. It's just purely a wrapper for a website. And like, sure, cool, whatever. It worked for that event, but I would not keep it around for any other reason.
The very last question.
Yes.
And I think this is the most important thing that sums everything up. Would you go again?
100%. I thought this event was fantastic. I am a firm believer in the cause. I would like to continue supporting the cause, championing the cause. You and I have looked at this before, and COVID kind of shut down what we were going to be doing. And I think any opportunity to either promote or go to these types of events is amazing. The fact that this is on its 11th year and still growing, the patronage that they had, I think was incredible. So I said there were personalities at the CEDH event. I came from my local. I came from outside Philly. Well, so does Comedian. And we weren't the furthest travelers to that event. In round 3, I played against somebody stationed in Hawaii.
That's awesome.
He doesn't get a lot of time to play, but he came out. He's like, I wanted to play this event. It means a lot. And also, my wife and I are going to be looking to move back to Texas. So it's a fun excuse to just...
No, fair.
Yeah, right? They built this into their plans to effectively just go house and neighborhood hunting, right? I think that's
awesome.
Exactly. That's powerful that this draw can be so wide, because even with the minimal amount of marketing that it seems that the Hunter Burton has, which is criminal, it should be marketed so much better.
So much more.
It has this kind of reach and this spread. And I think that says a lot about the cause itself, and that it's not overrun with people as an event to go participate in because, hey, I want to go play in a competitive event. Instead of, I think that's fine, but for something like this, I don't want to say, no, keep it small, man. But I think if your attendees are there for a reason, they're serving a purpose and a cause, I think that's just as powerful, if not more. Than just blowing the doors off the event. You're like, we want over 1,000 people for the next one. You could do that, but then it kind of dilutes everything a little bit, right?
Yeah.
But before we finish up, I do want to say that, as mentioned on marketing copy, there were artists there as well. They were outside the main hall alongside the CEDH players. Okay. Chris Seaman, Studio Aries, RK Post, who's just everywhere. Phil Stone and Sarah Finnegan. So they did bring in artists. They basically filled the amount of space that they had for artists with artists. That was great to see. You walked by them when you were on your way into the room. That was kind of a nicety that I never would have expected. Like I said, this year had live podcasts and some other things on Prem, which meant that while you were waiting for your events, you could just go park your butt in a conference room and effectively listen/watch a podcast. I learned about one called C3W, where they use the WWE Creator Wrestler function to create magic cards and then wrestle them off. Yeah. So when I walked out of the room, they were going to have Jace wrestle Valgavoth for control of loot. That's
awesome.
Yeah, C3W, fantastic. That was an amazing thing to see in between events. And the coverage. So NTT was there doing coverage, and this is the only time I've ever seen at an event where there are multiple TV screens, the coverage be displayed on those screens. We were getting a live feed of coverage, though everything was around behind, which was perfect. Yeah. So as we were going into round 3, round 2 coverage was on the TVs that were around the event. So it was actually really cool to see that end product on Prem. And there weren't a lot of places like kick your feet up and relax and watch it. There might have been in the VIP room. I didn't get that ticket because I was only looking to play in the main.
Yeah.
But I imagine it was there, and then you could just stand around kind of in the halls of the event and watch it. And there was logistically nothing I disliked about the event, aside from Spice Rack. That's it. And I assume the more this event grows, they were going to look into alternatives for this, because every game they had on Prem, except maybe Pokemon, is supported by Melee. Fab, supported by Melee. Swoo, Melee. Magic, obviously. Melee. I think Pokemon has their own thing, which is fine. Like, I know they have their own event reporter, and if they were using that, then cool. Then 100% of the games that you had at the event this year can be handled outside Spice Rack. And I don't want to keep harping on it, but that is like legitimately the only and loudest complaint that I have.
I think that's valid, especially when it's pretty much the only that it should be pretty loud.
Yeah.
Because it's so close to being perfect.
Yes, exactly. Also, the event was 2 flavor. So the head judge for the event, they had their cowboy hat on. She had her cowboy hat on. Like, her number 2 for the event had his deputy badge.
Yep.
And then, like I said, there's the U.S. regional. So I believe he's the U.S. Southern regional coordinator. He had his cowboy hat on. Like, it was
beautiful.
Everything about this was just like done to perfection. And it is super convenient in that convention center because it's attached to the Hilton Garden Inn. So if you want to go there, you just get in during the block and you literally just walk through the sliding doors to the convention. It is just impossibly convenient.
Very good.
Yes.
So anything else?
I don't think so. If you're listening to the podcast and you've never heard about the Hunter Burton Memorial, you definitely should. We'll throw some links up to the copy from previous years and this year. And if you've been touched by crisis or suicide in your life, this is definitely an event you should think of. If not, there's the 988 charity that works with a number of organizations. Look into them. And just, this is so meaningful.
Important.
Yeah, I just recommend you keep this in mind.
Yeah, agreed.
All right, that's it for me.
Same.
All right. So for at MtG Cabalcast on Twitter, Facebook, Patreon, YouTube, and Blue Sky, I am at Halt I Am Reptar. You are
at Damon _Thurston.
We'll see you next week.